Welcome to Becoming and Belonging, a journey of identity and culture. I'm your host, Amy Huggins from Ascension Wellness. Each week, we embark on a journey of discovering who we truly are, navigating the nuance of identity and culture, and learning what it means to belong in our own skin and in the world. Today, we are exploring the role of leadership in culture creation, and joining me is my guest, Randy Lyman. Randy has spent the last 34 years helping people unlock their true power by healing emotional wounds and reconnecting with their authentic self. As the author of The Third Element and a trailblazer in emotional healing, Randy's approach blends spirituality, personal growth, and practical techniques. His mission is simple: to lead an emotional revolution by helping others turn their challenges into transformative growth, ultimately creating a life of emotional freedom and empowerment. Randy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy. So good to be here.
So good to have you. So there was just so much, even in just that bio, that was really intriguing to me. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I spent the first 28 years of my life as a left brain physicist and mechanical engineer and business person. And I thought if I was smart enough and I worked hard enough, life would be great. And it was good, but I knew there was more. And about actually 35 years ago now, I met a woman that I'd spent 3 years with, Maria, and she introduced me to the human, emotional, spiritual side of life. Once I got started on that path, it was so intriguing. It was so much more interesting than even any of the complicated science. It was so intriguing. And originally, it wasn't necessarily rewarding, but it kept my interest long enough to become rewarding. And I've been on the path ever since.
Oh, I have so many questions coming up all at once. So, okay, you said that you live life as a left brain person, and it sounds almost like you were checking the boxes. You were doing the things you were told you're supposed to do, and you said that life was good. Now, did you have a sense that something was missing?
Exactly. I had a
Okay.
sense there was more. I just knew there was more. I was somewhat intuitive, even though I wasn't aware of it at the time.
Yep.
And I just knew that life could be better than this. And I followed the rules I was taught by society. Here's the rules. Here they are. Do this, and life will be great. And again, it was good, but I knew there was more. And so once I started to see the world past the rules that were taught from society and our family and everything else, then it opened up a whole new world for me.
hmm And would you say that meeting Maria, and I'm sorry, was it Maria or Maria?
Maria, yes,
Maria.
exactly.
Okay. And her talking to you about this stuff, was that the pivotal moment for you, or was there something else going on too?
That was the pivotal moment. Oh, actually, a few years before I started reading the Bible and I started to pray and try and find a connection to something larger than myself. I had actually found a four-leaf clover one time when I was really down and out, and I was on a walk in a park. And I said, God, show me a sign. And out of nowhere, I looked down, there's a four-leaf clover.
That's
So
a
I
big
had,
sign.
yeah, it was a big sign. So I had a few signs along the way, but nothing really brought it together until the time I spent with Maria. We were partners for 3 years, and she had been studying the spiritual world for 15 years, and she was really into it. And so I got to see little bits and pieces more and more as she exposed me to it as I was ready. And it changed my life because the hard work still paid off. The paying attention to my mind and my thoughts and being intelligent still paid off, but it removed the barriers that I had once I started to go through my own emotional healing.
How did it remove those barriers?
Well, the way that the law of attraction works is it reflects back our thoughts to us, it reflects back our actions to us, and it reactivates our old emotional wounds as a gift because God wants us to feel good. So the way that it reminds us that there's something to heal is with real time, in today's time, irritations. And as I worked through the irritations that came up, and I was fortunate enough to get to the underlying emotions and some of the things I was dealing with and feel them completely. In a lot of cases, feel the frustration, cry the tears, let the emotion out, let that stored energy out. And when I did, the physical world around me started to change.
Okay, that's really exciting. It's actually reminded me of a conversation I had with students this morning that is a version of a conversation I probably have with all students and all clients is exactly what you just described. And I tell them that humans, being social animals, we need relationship. But a big part of that, a big reason we need relationship is because it's our mirror. It reflects back to us what's going on inside that we can't see because it's inside. And it's not only our relationship with other humans, it can be relationship with other species. It can be our relationship with our business or our job or anything, whatever it is.
With our body, with the environment,
Yes,
whatever it might be. Well,
exactly.
after seeing everything with the eyes of a scientist through the lens of a law of attraction for so many years, especially with my focus being on emotions, I can say with 100% certainty, any irritation that we have in our life, physical or mental, goes back to an emotional wound that we have an opportunity to heal completely. Now, maybe we've already approached that and we've worked through a lot of healing, but it takes a while to get through some of our challenges. And so those relationships are an opportunity for us to see, if we choose to see them as a gift, an opportunity to see where we have opportunities for growth and for healing. Sometimes it's just a change in our mindset and thought patterns. Sometimes it reminds us that we need to take better care of our bodies or interact with the environment in a better way, the world around us. But for me, it always comes back to, what irritation do I have from the past that I can look at today and work through, whether it's through breathing, through yoga, through a walk in nature, whatever that might be. So the relationships, bad, good, and otherwise, are all a reflection. And the good that we see around us is a reflection of the good within us as well. And that's a whole different topic and a longer subject. But nothing's random, and everything is designed for us to experience ourselves.
Right. So through these other relationships, through these external relationships, we're really having a different type of relationship with ourselves.
Exactly. I talk about this in the book. We're here to experience ourselves, by ourselves, for ourselves. Now, we touch other lives and other lives touch us, but the main focus of our life is for our own personal expansion. We are a spark of God who decided to separate and go through this process. I believe in reincarnation. Just say it takes 1,000 years to find our way from complete physical world and ego back to spirit. And every step of the way is a challenge that we have chosen at some level. Either our personality or our soul has chosen it for us. And we're on this amazing journey that really sometimes is wonderful and sometimes really sucks, but it's all part of the game. And when we turn to love and we realize the answer is inside of us, then the game becomes a whole lot easier.
You know, I had a personal experience a few years ago that a spiritual awakening in which I realized there's a lot more to this whole conversation that we're having now that I would not have known enough to even understand half of what you're saying right now before the spiritual awakening. And now it's just, it really is a game. You use the word game, and it's like we're actors on a play, but we wrote the script. We wrote our script. And
Exactly.
we don't
It's like you've
know.
already read my book.
But
Exactly
now
what
I
you're
want
saying.
to.
We
But
are
we don't know
actors.
that, right? And so when we're living, I refer to it as like the 3D world or the Muggle world for Harry Potter fans. When we're living in the 3D world, this is reality. This is all we know. And it can feel so overwhelming until we have our own spiritual awakening or hear a podcast episode like this and learn that, oh, maybe there's more going on here.
Exactly. That's why 4 years ago I got so serious about writing the book. And it's actually taken 4 years to explain it in a way that's interesting to read, and it's helpful, and people can get a better idea of what to do in life, because the rules that we're given by society are so limited, and they serve society, but they don't serve our higher self. They don't serve our relationships, and they certainly don't serve our spiritual awakening and our spiritual advancement. And when we awaken spiritually and when we advance, we're not giving up the material world, but now we can serve our fellow man and all of our relationships in the material world so much better and from a deeper level. And so that's what the book is all about, is here are the rules of the game
Mm.
and here's what we can do differently. And this is the outcome that we're hoping for and working towards.
Yeah. And that sounds very empowering.
Well, it's all about being empowered because when we don't understand the rules of the game, why should we even play? It just gets frustrating.
Exactly.
So if I go out to play football, for example, is a lot more complicated. American football is more complicated than soccer. And that's one reason I think soccer is so popular all around the world, because 4-year-old kids can go out and kick the ball around. But now if we're going to play football, we have to know all the rules and it becomes complicated. Well, there's not a real good rule book before today as to the rules that God and the law of attraction has for us and how we can play the game.
Right. How do you see this at play in your life?
Well, the first thing I learned was to clear up my thoughts and be aware of my negative thoughts and my thought patterns that were unconscious and work through all that. And there are hundreds of great authors and speakers today who touch on that. So I'm very aware of it. I've gone through it all. I believe it all, but that's not what I focus on. But that was the first place I started. Then it went on to how I treated my physical body with health and diet and exercise and all those things. And then when I got into the emotional part, then it really comes down to, okay, are my thoughts clear? Are my actions clear? Now, how do I go inside and feel what I need to feel? And that was not an easy path at first because I didn't have a mentor who was really familiar with that and could guide me through that. So a lot of it was through mistakes and irritations and being willing to feel what I had to feel, because our ego, our mind automatically protects us from pain, whether it's physical pain. Don't burn your hand. Don't play with a knife, cut your finger. Okay. Or don't dive into that emotional wound because it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And so the ego is very helpful, but at the same time, it gets in the way of our emotional healing. So I had to have my mind, my thinking part of my mind, not the observing part of the mind. The observing part of the mind is in the moment, and that's a higher part of ourself. But the thinking, thought processing part of our mind, I had to help it to understand it was better off if it partnered with my higher self through my intuition and to partner through my inner child through healing. Now, the inner child isn't just about being emotional and careless. The inner child is our joy, is our creativity, is a lot of the beautiful things we experience in life are through our inner child. So we don't want to just shut it off or kill it. And so I learned to partner with those two, with my higher self and my inner child. And through one experience at a time, it just kind of snowballed and got bigger and bigger. My faith became uh, deeper in the partnership with my higher self and my inner child, and I worked through my emotional wounds one at a time as they came along, and learned as I went. And the nice thing about the book, The Third Element, that I'm releasing in February, is it gives people an idea of what to expect, and it gives them a reason to start to build those partnerships.
Yes, those partnerships with themselves in a completely different way. So that really makes me curious about your intuition. I wonder what, if any, what has been the impact for you on your intuition? What was your intuition like before and versus now?
My intuition was there, but I questioned it.
Mm.
So once I started playing kind of games with manifesting and my intuition. Like, so Maria said, imagine you're going to see a butterfly. And so I think of the butterfly, I'm pretty soon the butterfly shows up, and you think of a parking space and all these things we learn when we're first starting to manifest. And then I would get things that weren't necessarily my thought, but they came through, and I said, okay, let's see how that works out. Well, it was my intuition talking to me. And then I learned slowly to trust my intuition. And when I get a little message, I would start to listen to it if it was safe to listen to it, right? Because the mind doesn't trust the intuition at first. And I had one big experience. There was a Saturday and I was building an electronic circuit and I needed some parts and I needed to find a place that sold electronic parts. And we didn't have the internet then. This is a long time ago, 30 years ago. So I said, well, maybe there's a Radio Shack around here. I said, it's Saturday. I have plenty of time. I'm going to drive to it. Now that's crazy, but I was having fun. I had nothing to lose. So I start off and I ended up taking about 7 or 8 turns. And at each turn, I asked left or right. And intuition is so interesting because it'll just say left. The mind will say right for all these reasons, and it'll argue for itself. But intuition is pure, and intuition gives us free will. Intuition will never justify itself. So I was calm, I was quiet, I turned left, I turned right, I went farther, and I took the last turn, and bam, I'm in a parking lot from a back way in to a Radio Shack I'd never seen before. Like, holy cow. It was crazy. Now, I haven't really had that many great experiences like as complicated as that since then, but I learned to trust my intuition. So when I had business decisions to make, and my business got bigger and bigger and bigger, I went from the time to think through every decision. And I didn't always have the information to make good decisions. But because I was playing with my intuition, I would make smaller, less important decisions with my intuition. And the more of those that turned out to be right, the more my faith went up, and the better and more clear I could hear my intuition. Also, along the way, this is really important. As I worked through my emotional wounds, I could tell the difference between my emotion trying to convince me of something because I'm protecting an old wound or an old wound speaking to me, or my pure intuition. So my faith grew, I became more clear, and I was able to listen to my intuition better. And in the last 15 years of my business, which I sold it 9 years ago, so it was for a long time, I was able to make a lot of really big decisions. We're talking multi-million-dollar decisions with intuition. And sometimes intuition alone. And my partnership with my intuition is so strong that I trust it. Now, if I'm tired or I'm reactivated and upset or something like that, then I'm careful about what I listen to. We have to always be logical and reasonable. But if I'm clear and calm and the decision that I'm hearing through my intuition makes sense, then I follow it.
Well, and that clear and calm is such an important distinguishing factor, right? And I love how you said your mind will always argue for itself. Intuition doesn't necessarily need to argue for itself because it's just here you go. Here's a little gift. Take it or leave it. That's up to you. You can learn
And
the hard
so, right. And so it won't argue for itself for two reasons. For one, as you said, it's pure. It does not need to argue for itself. But then on the other hand, at the same time, it has to give us free will. God gives us free will. Even our soul gives our personality free will to make dumb decisions and to make mistakes. And that's how our personality learns. And as our personality learns and grows, then our soul learns and grows. And so we have free will. Now, if our soul has made a choice for us, we're supposed to go down this road or meet this person or have this experience, then our soul's choice will override our personality's choice. And at the same time, if God, from a higher perspective, says, this is the path you need to go on, then God will override our personality's choice. And that's frustrating because we think we know the best way.
way.
But sometimes when we stop and say, okay, I'm not going to fight this anymore, then we do that enough times. We see, oh, somebody from a higher perspective knew better than me. And so I've learned over the years to surrender to that. Now, I'm not saying I always surrender to that because sometimes I'm dead set on what I want, and my emotions can influence me and make me really think I need what I want. And that's not always the case. So it's a learning experience. It's a long learning experience that's a little complicated when we start down that path, but the farther we go down that path, the more fun it becomes.
Yeah. And it sounds like also what I hear you saying is it something of a snowball effect, a healthy snowball effect. So you work through the emotions, it clarifies your intuition, and which helps you feel your emotions more gently, more in flow, the way that they're intended versus being all clogged up and big and heavy and overwhelming. And the whole thing is just this almost unfolding of your spirit.
Yes. And sometimes before that part of our spirit can really unfold, we have to dive into some really painful emotional experiences in the past. And so emotions know no time. Emotions are larger, they're bigger than time and space. The mind, the thinking part of the mind, the thought processing part of the mind is never in the present moment. Our observation can be, that's a higher part of ourself, but the thinking part of our mind is absolutely never in the present moment. The body, which emotions come through, our body is only in the present moment. So as long as we're thinking, then we can't be feeling our body and we can't be processing and releasing emotions, or even feeling joy, really, as far as that goes. If we're stuck in our mind, it's hard to truly experience joy in the moment. But the most important thing I learned many years ago is emotions know no time. So if I have an emotional wound from 5 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 50 years ago, when I re-experience that, it comes through with the same intensity and the same pain as it did originally. Now, the beauty of that is once I feel it completely, it's like if I stored 5 gallons of gasoline in a metal container, and 10 years later, I open the container and the gasoline will still burn. It doesn't care how long it's stored.
Mm-hmm.
But once I burn it, it's gone. We can't burn gasoline twice, and we don't need to burn through those painful emotional wounds twice. And once we burn through that energy is stored within us, whether it's in our body, whether it's in our space around us, in our higher dimension of our being, it's energy. So when we burn through it and we feel it, it's gone. And what beautiful about that is what replaces it immediately is love. Love washes in through our being. We feel it in our body to replace the painful emotional energy we've released. And once I started experiencing that on a regular basis, then it was easier, so much easier to look forward to diving into the emotional pain and feeling the pain that was in the way.
I really love that gas can analogy. That's perfect. I might borrow that.
You're welcome to borrow that.
It's a great illustration. And, in our society and in many different cultures and in many different families, most of us have been taught to turn off our emotions, suppress them, repress them, ignore them, deny them. We have been taught that emotions are a sign of weakness, even in some cases, joyful emotions, because even joyful, happy emotions can be overwhelming when someone else is in a really difficult state. So I always joke that most of us are walking around where we're just floating heads. We have no bodies attached because we're so dissociated. We're not in our bodies. We love our mind. We love that thinking brain, and we escape to it because it's socially acceptable to just be a floating head. So once you start digging into the emotions and reconnecting with your body, I wonder what was that experience like for you?
Scary as hell.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
see, for because the emotions that I was holding back, excuse me, were anger, fear, rejection, all those things I didn't want to feel. Now, when I turn off my emotions, I was always also turning off the joy and the love and the gratitude and all those things. But when I opened up Pandora's box, so to speak, then a lot of the emotions that came through were very painful. Now, fortunately, I had a partner who understood that and helped hold a space for me to work through that. And that's something I talk about in the book. But at first, it was kind of terrifying. And fortunately, along the way, I had some good changes in my life because of those emotions, and my brain was able to make the connection between the emotional release and the improvements in my life. But that's the reason most people don't start down that path, is because it's scary and those old pains hurt. And our life has taught us not to. So being a man, for example, we're taught not to be emotional.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think we should ever make decisions based on emotion. I don't think we should use emotion as a tool or manipulate, but the emotions we have in whatever moment we have them are a valid tool to guide us towards something or away from something. Every emotion is valid. Now, the challenge is when I don't feel it completely and I store it, then it pops back up into my life later.
Mhm.
And so I need to find a place and time to heal those emotional wounds and let them go so that they don't influence my thoughts. Because I'm kind of jumping around here, but as a man, we have to be able to operate from a place of no emotion. Just 1,000 years ago in human evolution, to protect my family, I may have to kill a man with my bare hands. Now, today I don't have to do that, and I definitely don't recommend it. but we still, as men, our job is to provide and protect. And in order to protect, sometimes we have to turn off our emotions, and sometimes to provide, we have to turn off our emotions. Now, does that mean we should leave our emotions off all the time? No. There's instances where turning off our emotions is appropriate, but for the most part, being emotionally fluid and aware of our emotions will serve us. And it definitely serves us better and better as we clear out our emotional wounds and our emotional garbage. Then we can be at a place of balance between thought and emotion. and take action based on a balance of the two. But when we first start down that road, it's confusing, it's painful, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's almost like two different versions of yourself. You have your thoughts and you have your body, and they're not necessarily saying the same thing or agreeing with each other.
They're not. And that's a reason that I really pushed hard to make everything clear in the book, to take the time so that people can read it and understand, oh, when I'm experiencing this in my body, it can mean my emotions, it can mean my health, it could be and it can really be my mind interpreting what I'm feeling. And how do I separate all these out? And how can I understand what's going on? So now I can take a step back, observe, and then make good decisions about when and how to heal my emotions, when and how to make decisions without my emotions influencing my decisions, and why would I want to do this? And the why becomes really clear because our life becomes so much better.
Right. The proof is in the pudding.
Yes,
Now, you said that you sold your business, but you did still have your business when you were first coming into all of this, right?
I did. So 35 years ago, I was building my business. I had two locations and a lot of employees and a very successful multi-million-dollar business, but I also kind of hit a wall. It wasn't expanding the way I knew it could. And so as I became more emotionally clear, when I say emotionally clear, again, I'm feeling my old wounds, healing those and releasing them so that my anger doesn't influence my daily life. Now it's easier for me to interact with more people and easier for them to interact with me. So I started attracting people who are more clear. I started making better decisions. I started understanding how to interact with people from a more human, emotional point of view for the relationship rather than just, hey, this is the work we got to do. Let's think about it and get it done. Now I had deeper relationships with the people I was working with. They felt more included and part of the plan and had more ownership. So my group that I was working with evolved as I evolved, and then the business really took off. And I brought a lot of the spiritual practices I learned about including people and listening and helping people feel important in the business because they were important. As I included more of those practices, then it was just amazing to watch the business grow.
So it sounds like you really stepped into a role of leadership there.
Yes, and true leadership is showing by example and supporting others and helping others grow. And once I really got that and was able to create an environment where people felt safe and included and gave them an opportunity to grow, sometimes you got to push them a little bit, but you always got to make them feel supported and heard and listened to. And one thing I really learned is as a leader, when I slow down and I get out of my head and I can take a breath and be in the moment and I feel what I want to accomplish and I feel where I'm at and I'm centered, now the person I'm talking to can hear me because they feel me and they feel safe. If I come to them in a bad mood, they feel that and they shut down to protect themselves. It's instinctual, it's automatic.
Mhm.
So I knew in my business, for example, at one point in time, if I was in a bad mood and I walked through my sales floor, I had about 25 people on the sales floor on the phone mostly in the old days. And if I was in a bad mood and I walked through the sales floor, just walk through, it would cost me $10,000 in gross profit for that day
I
to
believe
walk through the
it.
sales floor. Like, so once I learned that, if I'm in a bad mood, I'm not going near salespeople. And if I'm in a good mood, I'm talking to everybody. I'm walking everywhere. I'm talking to everybody. And it took time to become self-aware. It took time to work through those things. And it didn't happen overnight, but oh my God, it was so worth it because I got to work with so many great people who taught me so much. And together we accomplished so much once it was about us instead of about me.
Right. And that's a really important pivot point right there is us, not me, because there's no such thing as me alone. We all live in community. We all live in relationship, especially if you're talking about a place of work, then we certainly have to be a team and everybody step into that role as a team player, which every leader is a team player, right? Versus
Every good
yeah,
leader
that's
is a team
right.
player. Every true
Yeah.
leader is a team player. And that's something I'm really looking forward to speaking more about to other business leaders, to other groups of business leaders, to management teams, to people about how being vulnerable, being strong enough and clear enough to feel safe being emotionally vulnerable
Mhm.
makes us a better leader. Now, we have to be through our own emotional pain and healing first, or a good deal of it, not all of it. We never make it through all of it.
Yeah.
I've been working on this for 35 years and I'm probably halfway through. So uh, it's a matter of learning. But once we learn as leaders that who I am is not my title, who I am is not the responsibility I have been given, and who I am is not even the results that I achieve.
Mhm.
Who I am is a spark of God,
Mhm.
someone who's here to learn and grow and to help others learn and grow. And when I find my worth through my connection with something larger than me, larger than life, so to speak, then I can be in a place that's safe to be vulnerable. And when I talk to people, I can be my authentic self. I can share my not only my hopes and dreams, my fears and my challenges, and then people connect with me as a human, and I connect with their human side and the part of them that really wants to experience more from life, the part of them that's afraid, that then becomes willing to open up, the part of them that has dreams, that are willing to share their dreams and become part of the dream we have together. That's what a true leader is somebody who is strong enough to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Strong enough to be vulnerable. It sounds like something you should quote.
Well, it's really true. And so once I was in a place where I could be vulnerable with the people that I worked with, then everything changed, and they started bringing me ideas, and they started bringing together groups about, well, let's do this as a group, and I learned to help people see that they could solve problems without me. Now, if they needed me, I'm there for them.
Mhm.
But when they learned that they're capable of finding solutions without me, then they bonded as a group. They also learned that they could disagree with each other, first with me, and I mediated and you teach people come from first person. When you do this, this is what I feel. This is how I'm affected. It's never about blame. And then they learn how to communicate, and then they learn how to work through their challenges together. And then the teams bond, and then you have different teams in accounting or in sales or in purchasing that all grow independently. And pretty soon they learn, well, wait a minute, we're having this challenge in this other group. We can reach out to them and communicate the same as Randy communicates with us, the same as we communicate with each other within our group. We can communicate cross departmentally. And now you have a unified team of people who are all working together, and they understand each other's shortcomings, but they accept each other's shortcomings because somebody accepted their shortcoming.
Exactly. So, on the one hand, it's kind of a pay it forward sort of thing playing out. But also, it reminds me at the beginning of the conversation when you said that our external world is a reflection of what's going on inside. So, when you have done your work, you can show up with your team and you start to reflect what is inside of you outward, right? And so then,
Yes, because
yeah,
because anytime we have any internal wound, the law of attraction is obligated. And I use that word very purposely. The law of attraction is obligated to remind us of that old emotional wound so we can find it, dig in deep, find it, and heal it. Now, if we're not taught that, if we don't understand that, we just want to turn off the outside irritation. We want to fix
right.
the outside problem. And then that irritation is still within us, and law of attraction says, oh, you need a bigger reminder? I'll bring you a bigger problem to help expose this. Well, again, that's the reason that I wrote the book, is so people can understand and look at it from a different point of view, a different perspective, and say, when this person outside of me is an irritation, I may be able to change them in the moment, but that won't change it in the long term. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have boundaries. We shouldn't walk away from people who are a problem. We shouldn't express to people what we're willing to deal with and what we're not. But when we try and change that person outside of ourselves
Mhm.
to treat us different, when we try to change them to be more like us or be whatever way we want them to be, we're virtually helpless. They'll change for a moment, but law of attraction will bring us back a similar experience to remind us of that wound. So now when I have that irritation, I may remove myself and create a boundary. But more importantly, I'm going to say, okay, what's this about? Is this about rejection? Is this about jealousy? Is this about whatever emotional wound it is? Then I have to dig into it. And one thing that's been really helpful for me that we share as an offer is my own personal workbook that I wrote for myself to work through my crap. When I have something that's irritating me, I start reading it again and filling out the questions and looking at myself from that perspective. And I'm working through a challenge right now with it. And I'm on page, I forget, 18 or 19, working through it. And sometimes I stop because, oh God, this is bringing stuff up for me.
Yeah.
I got to work through it a little bit at a time. So I go back to that myself.
Mm.
And I am very successful in my own right. But as an author, I'm still brand new. So I'm working through a lot of emotions around that
Yeah.
and being out in the world. But I go back to my workbook and I say, okay, what am I thinking? Where did I learn it? How can I think different? What do I need to feel? How can I work through those feelings? And so every external irritation is a gift.
It really is. It does not feel like a gift. It feels like a curse a lot of times in the moment. But once we can dig through the gunk, there's always that nugget of gold, isn't there?
There's always gold, always a nugget every time. And I believe 100%, with 100% certainty, every external irritation or bodily irritation is an emotional opportunity for emotional healing. And so that's not a popular thing. It's not mainstream. I hope someday it will be. But even if whether I reach 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people, everybody that we reach and we help them through understanding of how the world works, and we can give them some guidance and understanding and incentive to look at themselves and heal instead of trying to only change the outside world, then our world gets better. Then that grows. And there's such a huge underlying current right now of people in our country and the world who are turning to good. Now, it may be God through religion, it may be spirit, it may be whatever practice it is. So many people now are saying good wins. And I don't believe in might is right. And I don't believe in lack. And I know that there's something bigger that I can tap into that will guide me and direct me and help support me in my life here as a human. And that underlying wave is growing. When I go to the grocery store or the hardware store or wherever I might be traveling, I start to talk to people, and pretty soon they're telling me, yeah, I believe in good, but do you think other people do? Well, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do more and more every day. And it's through conversations like this, right? Amongst other things, just hearing this stuff and just feeling the energy of a person who has done enough of their work that they're able to connect with themselves authentically and then shine that outward. I mean, the
Yes,
more we experience our own journey, the more that we're able to call forth others to bravely be as vulnerable.
and for me, that call forth is by setting an example,
Mm.
by sometimes asking questions, but we can never tell anybody what to do. We can never tell anybody what works unless they ask questions. But the best thing we can do is to become more evolved ourselves and have people ask us, something's different about you. What?
Yeah.
And for me, I say I just dive into my emotional challenges and I own it and I work on it and I stop trying to change the world around me. And they look at me like, what the heck are you talking about? And if they ask questions, great. I talk with them. If they don't ask questions, then I simply let them be and live their life the way they want to live it. I can't be codependent. I used to be very codependent, and that did not serve me.
Mm.
And now today, uh, I'm able to walk away if somebody is not open to listening. Sometimes it's hard. And something Maria told me 35 years ago, she said that her mentor had taught her, someday you'll get to a place where you can walk by a 4-year-old girl sitting in the gutter playing with garbage and know she is exactly where she's supposed to be,
Mhm.
having the experiences her soul has asked for, and it's not up to us to save them. Now, if she reaches out a hand, we take their hand and
Right.
we offer whatever help is appropriate at that moment. But we cannot take another soul's lesson away from them. We're not God in their reality. They are God in their own reality. So when they ask for help, I'm there. But if they don't ask for help, I bless them, I send them love. And I may feel sadness. I may feel my own emotions around that. But at the same time, I know that every one of us is a spark of God, human and physical, and of spiritual being here mixed together, having this experience. And so I honor that in others where I see challenges, and I say prayers for them. And when they ask for help, I do my best to help. And otherwise, love is all we can offer.
That's right. And that love goes so much further than we tend to think that it does. We think, oh, it's just a feeling, and I'm not actually doing anything to help that girl in the gutter, for example.
Right.
But love is more than just a feeling. It's, as with everything, it's an energy. And when I or anyone feel that, just like when you walk through the sales floor, whatever you were feeling literally impacted your sales for the day. And it's
Yes.
because of that whole energetic ripple effect, right? And they
Yes.
felt you, just like that little girl in the gutter feels the love of a passerby.
And sometimes the things we see outside of us are simply for a lesson for us to remember to go back to love.
Exactly.
And there are so many billions of realities and possible futures for us. And I go into this in the book about every thought, every action, every emotion has a vibration and is taking us towards our future reality. And sometimes we can have huge shifts in what our reality is, what I refer to as a parallel shift. I was headed this direction, I worked through my thoughts, my actions, and I have this big emotional release, and all of a sudden I'm pointed over this other direction. And it looks like a miracle, but it's not. It is a reality, possible reality that already existed. And when I work through the emotional healing, all of a sudden I'm on a completely different track. The train's on a different track and I'm headed in a better direction. And that's what the emotional healing always does for me.
I really love that. You just gave me a great visual with the train track because it's almost like every fraction of a second is a choice point and another choice point and another choice point. We are
Exactly.
so much more empowered than we ever feel like we are. Most of our choices are most of the decisions that we make are done subconsciously. So the
And
more,
to avoid and to avoid pain. And a
yeah,
lot of times to avoid emotional pain, which takes us to it being necessary to have bigger pains to get to the original source.
exactly. It's like a loved one tapping you on the shoulder, trying to get your attention over something really important. And we just keep, shh, go away. We just keep shooing them away. Just shut up, stop bothering me. And so they have to get louder. These things, ourself, our wounds, have to just keep getting louder and louder and louder. Listen to me, pay attention. I'm trying to help you.
And they do. And a lot of people are ready to take this journey. Some
Yeah.
are not. But even if they start to read the book and they get halfway through and say, this was all logical, but now you're starting to talk a little more about emotional, and I'm not sure if I'm open to that. Great. Put the book aside, give it to somebody else. And when the time is right, the message will come back, whether it comes from me or it comes from somewhere else in the universe. The universe gives us exactly what we need when we're ready to receive it.
Exactly. And, you had mentioned that you used to be codependent. It can feel, we can experience moments of almost a sense of urgency that, okay, I finally figured out this wonderful thing. And so I just really want you to not have to go through the pain that I went through. I really want you to just, here, let me download it from my brain into your brain all at once. And
And
then
another book that
spiritual
I'm working on,
bypassing.
exactly. And another book I'm working on. That's one of the phases we go through because for some reasons, for some of us, we want to help others. For some of us, we want to be more special. Our ego is excited because we
Yeah.
learned something others don't learn. And
Yeah.
it's always a mix. And that was a challenge to get through, both through accepting others as they are and uh, sending love and providing support without my ego wanting to take credit for it. It took a long time to get there.
Now, you spoke to this a little bit when you were talking about intuition, but how do you discern that voice of ego?
So intuition is just the quiet whisper with no justification. And my mind, and when talking to other people, most people, their mind will say, turn left
Mhm.
because it'll be better. It'll be different. And there's always, the mind always wants to justify everything because ego has to be right. Ego has to be correct, has to make other people wrong, and has to be separate from the rest of the world. So ego really, it's almost impossible for ego to just say, turn left, period. There's never a period. It's a comma or it's a new sentence or it's a whole nother paragraph. And so also I can feel it in my body
Mhm.
and it just comes through from a lot of practice. So practice with something small first, practice with manifesting something small. My favorite book in the world is still Illusions by Richard Bach.
Yep.
And in that book and that story, um, Don, his mentor says, think of something, imagine something. And Richard says, a blue feather. blue feather, really? Okay. Hold it in your hand or imagine it. He didn't say hold it in your hand. Imagine it and it'll show up. Well, later that day, it shows up on the back of a milk carton. And Richard says, my feather, I'm excited. And so it was exciting for me when I first started manifesting little things in my life. Like I say, a butterfly, a parking space, um, whatever it might be for you that you're looking for, a particular color pen, a pen with purple ink, something silly.
Mhm.
And it starts as a game. And then as we play the game more and more, it's like, holy cow, this is powerful. So just start with something small.
I made it into a game years ago, and I swear I went for almost an entire year without stopping at a single red light. So it's a fun game to play.
It is. And yeah, that's really good. But it's not powerful. And part of the challenge is our mind believing it. Our mind wants to believe it's the only path forward, it's the only way to success. And when we learn to partner with our intuition, then the mind eventually learns, oh, I can achieve bigger success when I partner with my intuition. I can achieve bigger success when I partner with my inner child. And so we learn slowly, oh, okay, there's ways our mind learns, there's ways to have a better life by partnering with others. And that's just part of the game is working our way through that.
Okay, I love that you just said that. So it's not about shutting down the ego, it's about the ego learning how to partner.
Exactly. People say, "Oh, the ego's got to die." The ego can't die. It's not going
Right.
to die.
It'll
We don't
fight
want it to
harder.
die. We don't need. It'll fight harder. But we don't need it to die. So we need it to feel like it is the guiding force and the active participant in everything we do. Now, there's a higher part of ourself, the observer, that is more connected with spirit, and we really want that to have a strong influence on our ego self. But eventually, the ego self learns, okay, I can be happy sitting and being and feeling. I don't always have to be active. And it takes a long time to get there. And for me, I'm not the kind of guy to sit still and meditate. If I'm moving, if I'm riding my dirt bike, if I'm walking, then my mind is more quiet, not completely quiet. And then I can be more clear. So every one of us is different. Some people can sit and meditate, some people have to move. But as we continue to build that partnership, the mind gives up its need for control.
Mhm. Exactly. The need goes away. It's almost like when we have a craving and we keep eating all of the wrong things because we're not really sure what it is. We just feel this need. And really maybe we need vitamin C, but we're eating ice cream and donuts and all the wrong things, but the craving is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, driving us to eat all the wrong things because we haven't identified what it is we actually need. And so as the ego learns to trust and partner with the intuition, that need is met.
Yes. And once we learn that the tools that we're offered and that we have access to work, and we turn to those tools a little more often. Tools, I mean, breath work, massage, working out. A favorite one for me used to be a plastic bat and a pillow because I had anger. And I
Yeah.
need to get that energy out of my body. I need to express it in a way, whether it's out yelling in a tree in nature where nobody's harmed, or whether it's beating the heck out of a pillow with a plastic bat. And I went through those more and more, then the anger was released. I was more clear. And then my mind said, oh, this wasn't just about being angry. This is about what's behind the anger. What
Right.
is the part of us that's closer to God? And that's there all the time. The problem is our emotional wounds get in the way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you alluded to it earlier. You have a gift and to share with our audience, and you were saying how it sounds like you created this gift for yourself and you're still using it.
Yes. So I started with the idea of, well, I'm going to write a workbook. So I started writing it a little bit at a time. The only way to know if it works is to use it. So I started using it and I started adding to it. And when I get in a place of writing without thinking, then a lot of great things come forward. And so a lot of great ideas and words and questions came forward in this. And I use it still today. I'm working using it today. So I don't remember how many pages it is when it's all put together in a presentation, but it's extremely useful. I go back to it whenever I have a challenge. And that's one of the offers we have, along with, I believe, a tapping video and the introduction and first chapter of the book. And so take a look on the website and you'll see the offer and a little bit about what is to come in the future. Also, we're building our street team right now for the release of the book. The title, or excuse me, the cover of the book was finalized about a week ago, and my marketing team says, nope, we're not going to release it until the street team sees it first. So that'll be released. The release date for the book will be sometime in February, but we'll have an advanced reader copy available to some people on the street team, and people on the street team can also get notice as to other workbooks and things that are coming forward sooner. So the website is randylyman.com. That's RANDYLYMAN.com for those who are listening and not watching. And you can take a look and see more about my philosophy and what I share and the offerings that we have. But mostly, it's not about the offerings for me as much as it's about the message. The message is bigger than me. The message is here to help everyone. And even if you just come and check out the page, come and watch a few videos, listen to some of the other podcasts that I'm on, as well as what you've been able to gain from this, and realize we're all spiritual beings on a human path with the opportunity to improve our life. And if you have doubts about who you are, put the doubts aside and open your mind to the idea that you are a spiritual being with unlimited potential who's here playing this game in order to find your way back to God.
Oh, I love that. That's a beautiful final message to close on. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us and the audience. I'll link to those gifts and to your website in the show notes. And listeners, I strongly encourage you all to go check out Randy's website at randylyman.com, and also his free gift, the Emotional Healing and Abundance Activation Bundle. That sounds so exciting and powerful. Randy, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome, Amy. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I love the work you're doing.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Becoming and Belonging. I'd love to hear from you. What was your biggest takeaway from today's episode? Share your thoughts, reflections, any questions that came up. You can connect on social media or leave a comment wherever you're tuning in to keep the conversation going. If you found this episode meaningful, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and remember, you belong here.